Dangerous entities? Like Kaidar? Elias asked, gesturing subtly towards the chamber where the Death Stalker had so violently demonstrated its capabilities. The star being shimmered, its internal light intensifying slightly. Kaidar is a prime example. But there are others. Beings whose very existence threatens the fabric of reality. Creatures whose appetites are insatiable. Intelligences that crave only chaos and destruction. And you study them, Elias said, to understand how to, what? Contain them? Control them? Weaponize them? All of those options have been considered, Morrell said. But our primary goal is to understand. To learn what makes these creatures tick, what drives their behavior. If we can understand them, perhaps we can find a way to mitigate the threat they pose. Mitigate or weaponize? Elias pressed, his gaze fixed on Zinther. The Valdarian met his gaze unflinchingly. The Stellar Alliance is committed to the preservation of life, Dr. Thorne. We only resort to force as a last resort. Understanding is our first, and most powerful, defense. I hope that's true, Elias said, unconvinced. He knew the dark side of science, the temptation to exploit knowledge for power. Even on Earth, the noblest research often had a shadow, a potential for misuse. What are the rules, then? Elias asked. Can't imagine you expect me to enter the tank with one of these apex beasts with nothing but a wetsuit and a smile. Zinther permitted himself a rare, almost imperceptible smile. Of course not, Doctor. You will have access to all the necessary equipment, the specialized observation suites to start, and a modified wetsuit that has been tested with our apex predators. After which, you will have full control over the equipment's capabilities and their use cases. We may value safety, but results are what we need the most. Elias nodded slowly, absorbing the information. All right, show me this equipment. I want to test out their strengths and weaknesses. Very well. For the next few days, Elias immersed himself in the intricacies of Project Leviathan. He was shown the vast library of alien knowledge, filled with data on countless species from across the galaxies. He examined the advanced containment systems, force fields, and energy weapons designed to subdue even the most powerful creatures. And he met with a team of researchers, a motley crew of beings from all corners of the Alliance, each with their own unique expertise. There was Dr. Lyra, a wizened Kthar whose mastery of energy manipulation was unrivaled. Then Dr. Forlag, a hulking Grondian with an encyclopedic knowledge of physiology. Elias quickly learned that Project Leviathan was more than just a research facility. It was a living, breathing ecosystem of scientific curiosity and cautious experimentation. He also learned that the apex beasts that lived in the abyss had to be protected. During one of his tours, Morrell led Elias to a particularly fascinating section of the station of vast bioluminescent forest grown hydroponically under artificial suns. This is our recreation area, Doctor, Morrell explained. It is important for the crew to have a space to relax and connect with nature, even in this artificial environment. The forest was breathtaking. Trees of all shapes and sizes grew in abundance, their leaves glowing with a soft, ethereal light. Strange, alien flowers bloomed in vibrant colors, their petals unfurling in hypnotic patterns. And the air was filled with the gentle hum of insects and the melodious calls of unseen creatures. As Elias gazed in awe at the alien landscape, he noticed a small, unassuming figure standing near the edge of the forest. It was Dorv, the squat, purple alien, observing the scene with a somber expression. Dr. Thorne, Dorv said, his voice low and gravelly. May I have a word? Elias nodded and followed Dorv to a secluded corner of the forest, away from the bustling activity of the other researchers. I must confess, Doctor, Dorv said, his mandibles clicking nervously, that I have reservations about this project. About you? Elias raised an eyebrow. Reservations? You think I'm going to get myself killed? That is not my primary concern, Dorv replied. I am concerned about the ethical implications of what we are doing here. These creatures, these apex beasts, are not simply specimens to be studied and dissected. They are living beings, With their own thoughts, their own feelings, their own rights. And you think I'm going to exploit them? Elias asked, a touch of anger creeping into his voice. You think I'm going to turn them into weapons? I do not know what your intentions are, Dr. Thorne, Dorv said, his black eyes unyielding. But I know that the Stellar Alliance has a history of questionable decisions when it comes to dealing with powerful species. I fear that Project Leviathan may simply be a prelude to something far more sinister. Elias stared at Dorv, his mind racing. He had sensed a certain unease among some of the researchers, a quiet undercurrent of dissent beneath the surface of scientific curiosity. But he hadn't realized the depth of their concerns. I can't promise you that I'll change the Alliance's mind, Dorv, Elias said. But I can promise you this. I will treat these creatures with the respect they deserve. And I will fight to ensure that their well-being is not sacrificed for the sake of some galactic power play. Dorv considered his words for a moment before nodding slowly. I appreciate that, Doctor. I truly do. The universe will be looking at you. That next morning, Elias found himself standing before the Leviathan tank, his heart pounding in his chest as he prepared to face Kydar for the first time. He was clad in a specialized wetsuit developed by the Valdarians, an armored shell designed to withstand extreme pressures and provide some degree of protection against the Death Stalker's formidable weaponry. Before he entered, however, an old friend popped up into his head. All right, Dad, time for a safety check, said his daughter, Ori Thorne, as she laughed. Before you go, is everything ready? Yes, I knew I could always rely on my favorite girl to help a man out. Elias laughed. All right, give me a couple seconds, I think I am going to need it. He could never forget the promise he made to his daughter, to always prioritize her safety. It took approximately 15 minutes, but the systems had finally aligned and he was ready to go into the belly of the beast. I'll see you on the other side, Dad, said Ori. The artificial ocean inside the Leviathan tank pressed around Elias, a cold, viscous embrace. He activated the helmet lights, casting a narrow beam into the inky blackness. Visibility was poor, barely a few meters. The pressure was noticeable even through the specialized suit, a constant reminder of the power held within this alien environment. Then he saw it. 2 crimson orbs materialized from the darkness, burning like twin embers in the void. Kydar. The Death Stalker drifted closer, its massive form slowly resolving in the dim light. Elias could now fully appreciate its terrifying majesty. The scale was incomprehensible, the jagged teeth, the alien grace. It was the embodiment of predatory perfection. He could feel the weight of centuries of evolution, of countless hunts and kills, radiating from the creature. Elias steeled himself, recalling the training exercises, the simulations, the advice of the Valdarian scientists. But nothing could have truly prepared him for this. He felt a flicker of primal fear, a deep-seated instinct that screamed at him to flee. But he pushed it down, focusing on the task at hand. Hello, Kydar, Elias said, his voice echoing slightly within his helmet. It's me, Elias Thorne. I'm here to learn. Are you ready to learn too? Kydar remained motionless, its crimson eyes fixed on Elias. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Elias felt a bead of sweat trickle down his forehead, stinging his eyes. Was this it? Was this the end? Then a response. Not a sound, not a physical movement, but a powerful sensation, a telepathic push against his mind. It was a torrent of raw emotion, anger, suspicion, resentment. But beneath it all, a flicker of curiosity? Prove it, the thought resonated in his mind, clear and forceful. Prove you are not like the others. Elias took a deep breath, fighting to maintain his composure. All right, Kydar, he said, his voice amplified and projected into the water. Let's see if we can understand each other. Can you tell me where you came from? Then, as he remembered what the other scientists had told him, he had to ask Kydar why it was doing it. There was a pause. Elias wondered if he had made a mistake. But before Elias had given up hope, the alien beast had finally answered. Nexus V is my prison. The rage behind the name could almost be palpable as Elias imagined it, and he knew that they were dealing with eons of torment for the beast. With his peace told, Elias attempted to move closer to the great beast, wanting to prove to Kydar that he was not a threat. However, before Elias could take one step forward, something in the water had hit him, knocking the scientist out of the water. What then proceeded was a world of pain. He could feel his body being dragged along by an unseen entity. The world before him was nothing but blackness as he could feel his body being tossed and turned all around. "Why do you resist? I am giving you what you want," Kydar had said. "There is only one way out, just trust me," Elias responded. All the beast had to respond was for the bindings to disappear. With that freedom known, both Elias and Kydar were able to swim out with their combined skill and strength through the station. What lied on the other side, however, was something neither had expected. All members of the Stellar Alliance were gone. And what in their place was a fleet unlike anything that Elias had ever known. The ship seemed to take up most of his vision as he had finally escaped the hellhole. All they knew was that something truly big had to be the reasoning for them to show up like that. "What in the world?" Elias couldn't respond with Kydar's transmission. "Now we leave. I am done helping those that imprisoned us for too long," said Kydar. Now it was that a choice was asked of Elias, to stay among the rest of humanity who saw him as nothing but a Sea Madman, or to side with an alien monster that he had no idea whether to trust or not. There wasn't any real decision to make. He had decided this the moment he had arrived in this facility. "Then, let's go where they can't find us," said Elias as he then started to work on the equipment. "But give me a minute to contact those friends of mine, would you?" And so it was that Elias had asked for one final request, to be able to bring those that he was friends with to a new utopia. He couldn't exactly tell what the beast thought. It was what Elias wanted, however. "Thank you," Elias said. After his message to the planet, Elias finally set out in what was to be a journey with Kydar. A true partnership for a friendship. Before Elias could get his mind off of things, however, he had to ask an important question first. "This may be sudden," said Elias, "but I really would like to know if you could destroy civilizations? You're not gonna destroy Earth, right?" Kydar paused and thought, before responding with only the slightest bit of malice. "Those on the outside that have ruined my name, then I would. But only if they force it. I am not one for malice or senseless slaughter. Do not fret, my friend, your home is safe. I have finally achieved what I have been striving for." With that, the unlikely duo had set out, Elias to the stars, and Kydar to a new life. As the news reached Earth that a human was last spotted with a violent apex predator, and then they went missing to many other solar systems, the people felt only fear. Humans have always had this special relationship, however. Despite our lack of teeth, claws, scales, our greatest power has always been to understand what cannot be understood. One day, however, a new transmission from the galaxy would come. This transmission, coming not from a human, but from an apex predator in its own right. "We have finally understood what Dr. Thorne had wanted to show us. It has taken much time and effort, but we realize. We too can become those that you call empathetic. There is an apex predator here on Earth you call humanity. We too will reach for the stars, as you all are. Our fates are now forever intertwined." The Deathstalker and Elias Thorne. The world had changed. Morrel led Elias down another corridor, the air growing noticeably colder. A rhythmic thrumming vibrated through the deck plates, a low, guttural resonance that seemed to penetrate bone and marrow. It was a sound that spoke of immense power, barely contained. "We are approaching the Leviathan containment zone," Morrel announced, his voice subdued. "Please prepare yourself, Dr. Thorne. What you are about to see is not for the faint of heart." They arrived at a colossal chamber, the walls lined with observation ports made of some impossibly strong, translucent material. The chamber was dimly lit, casting long, eerie shadows that danced and writhed like living entities. The source of the thrumming vibration was now deafening, a primal heartbeat that resonated with the very fabric of Abyssia. "Brace yourself for what you will see next," he said. Morrel placed his hand on a panel, and the largest observation port, directly ahead of them, shimmered and cleared. Elias stepped forward, his breath catching in his throat. It was Kythar, a Nexorian death stalker. And it was unlike anything Elias had ever imagined. Pictures could not describe, readings could not calculate the sheer threat and intimidation that just being there could impose. It seemed all of the alien crewmates all had an equal amount of fear, even those that knew what it was like. He then took in that to be said to be only 4 in the entire galaxy, they would all be fools to think that they were doing their part. "What do you think, Dr. Thorne? Is it what you expected?" asked Morrill. This thing wasn't just an apex predator. It was an instrument of utter devastation, a biological weapon crafted by forces Elias could barely comprehend. He could see why they called it the Death Stalker. Elias's respect turned into something a lot more akin to fear. Its form was vaguely serpentine, but far more massive than any serpent he had ever seen on Earth. Its body was segmented, like some nightmarish fusion of reptile and insect, covered in plates of obsidian-like armor that shimmered with an oily sheen. Rows of glowing, bioluminescent fins rippled down its flanks, propelling it through the water with terrifying speed and grace. The whole composition was that of fear. The head was indescribable. Elongated and flattened, with no discernible eyes, but possessed of 4 sets of jaws with rotating teeth as far as one could see. Not even any amount of engineering in all of Earth would be as perfect. From the top of the head ran a set of pulsing organs, all glowing in angry crimson color that sent waves through the alien beast's body. The tank that was imprisoning this thing didn't seem like enough to stop it, which just heightened the fear that Elias was facing. "You are going to encounter it in a cage, correct?" asked Elias. "Correct. Our gear is designed to prevent it from entering. Although with my time here, none of the protective measures truly feel any different. The best that they can do is simply delay," responded Dorv, which didn't help Elias's case. "In the meantime, do you wish to familiarize yourself with any of the equipment used to contain it?" asked Morrill. "Perhaps the various audio recordings might tell you more of the behavior of the beast?" Elias was pulled from his daze by the question. With a shake of his head, he was all the more ready to go in now. "There are many things that can be studied from here," said Elias. "But what makes me special is that I act and adapt to what occurs before me. I'm ready." The alien crew did what they could to try and persuade Elias to do a lot more work, as none of them wanted their lives put in danger again. But Elias Thorne did what he wanted to do, and there was little that they could do to stop it. There was a certain level of excitement that came with knowing how close death was. It made him feel alive. There was the obvious problem: the first researchers that had come over were seasoned veterans, so why him? Why was Elias chosen instead? There were clearly certain things that they were not saying. "Be wary, Dr. Thorne," Morrill said as they entered the preparation chamber, his black eyes holding a hint of genuine concern. "Kythar is unlike anything you have faced before. It possesses an intelligence that is almost malevolent. It enjoys toying with its prey before it devours them. Don't expect it to be predictable, and whatever it does, expect the unexpected." "As a marine biologist, I have seen many things, Doctor," responded Elias. "I am one for the history to be made." As he entered the water, he noticed some changes. For one, the ocean current started to get a lot heavier than usual. Then what felt like a chill going right up his spine. And with one glance he could finally find out what all the fuss was about Kythar. It turned around, and what Elias saw was pure aggression that he could not deny existed. It knew what he was, and it was ready to kill. Elias focused. What would he do? "Remember, Doctor. What can kill you is out there." All he could do was to take a deep breath. At that point there wasn't any backing out, the beast was ready, and whether or not he was there to make it out. What Thorne had to do was simply respond. Elias floated suspended in the frigid water, the weightless environment allowing him a measure of calm amidst the rising anxiety. His heart pounded against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the oppressive silence. He focused on controlling his breath, a trick he had learned long ago, when facing down great whites in the shark-infested waters off Guadalupe Island. Dr. Thorne, are you certain about this? Morrow's voice crackled in his ear. The protective gear is essential for your survival. It is equipped with stun grenades, an electric barrier, and high-speed propulsion. Elias took a deep breath, letting it out slowly. The Valdarians, with their advanced technology and interstellar experience, couldn't understand his approach. They saw Kydar as a weapon, a problem to be solved with brute force and technological superiority. They had forgotten, or perhaps never learned, the fundamental truth that Elias had dedicated his life to understanding, that even the most terrifying predators were creatures of instinct and habit, driven by the same basic needs as all living beings. I'm afraid this won't work for what I need it for. A cage is simply too aggressive, an immediate assumption of hostile behavior, replied Elias. What is needed most is what I believe will help us all in the long run here. A simple bit of trust. But the other researchers? Dorv interjected, his mandibles clicking nervously. What happened to them was as a result of the trust of the apex beast. Elias considered. All that Dorv said was true, but he was simply going to have to find a way. After all, it's what he had spent his whole life doing. They were going in there to take stuff from them that they would rather not. Elias retorted. You are acting, but they don't need to act aggressive if you are on their side. So let's just put an end to this debate, and just heed my wishes. After all, it's what made you hire me, didn't it? Silence fell again, and Elias used it to disconnect the tether that would have been used to save him from any potential accident, leaving the others in shock at what he has done. His life was now entirely on himself, and whether or not he would be able to build something with Kydar. The only thing he had to do was begin. Very well, Dr. Thorne, as you wish, said Morrill in response to the disconnection. I am ordering all systems to stand by and prepare to protect the hull. Let us hope that you know what it is that you are doing. Elias nodded before setting his sights for what he knew was a path to glory, perhaps a path to doom, or most likely both. Taking a couple breaths, he took a step. All right, Echo, take it easy now, said Elias, hoping that his actions would allow Kydar to at least start thinking a little bit differently. So now, let's see what exactly we have to do. Elias activated his equipment and started to observe what the beast would do. It responded at first with a lot of suspicion, as it was used to seeing that as its standard operating behavior. At first it seemed all hopeless, but as Elias began doing what he usually did back on Earth, Kydar began mirroring. It seemed to work. The beast seemed to relax a bit as Elias's confidence continued to grow. He slowly started to approach the large beast more. He would have to be wary about his movements since one thing could lead to an end. As he got closer, Elias reached out his hand. Now, Elias cooed. I am no harm, am I? Don't let what you went through change who you are, right? There is more to life than just death. With that, Elias was able to put his hand on the hide of Kydar. From there his entire mind was blown. Everything and every signal it had been sending to him were now directly in his brain. He felt what it felt, thought what it had thought, and knew what it had known. Despite not even being part of its species, the very core had managed to resonate. A sense of home. And all he had to do was keep with it. Well, here it is, ladies and gentlemen, for what it is worth, Elias stated over the comms. I have made contact with the creature, and what more, I think I understand what it wants to do. To what end? Morrow replied. From what I can see, this area isn't exactly the right one for him, Elias responded. The ocean is wide. I think what it would prefer most would be in the open sea. That was when Kydar chimed in. It has always wanted to go back home. It wanted to live the way it was supposed to. Is that correct? Asked Morrill. Affirmative. All Kai wants is to go back home. I think you're all going to be interested in what that has to bring, Elias replied. Now please, before the both of us die, let's see if you guys will actually do as I ask. Everything was silent. Too silent. As to whatever was to come? I had not thought that the ocean would be something so scary. Despite being allowed to spend hours in what may be called a bond session, Thorne knows to be extra careful as to whoever might want them hurt. With that thought in mind, he had ordered everyone to look out. At least this action had allowed them to see whether or not Thorne's action actually managed to have the effect that he wanted or not. "Elias, can you hear me?" said Dorv with a voice that sounded as if he wanted to throw up. "Why? How? Tell me it is not as what is seeming." "I am unsure what it is that you are seeing," said Elias. "But if I were to guess it would be for good, as I am being led straight through the space." Through the actions done to allow the beast to rampage throughout this zone, Elias was able to finally gain the knowledge of the base itself, including its flaws and what made it so special. In addition, he also managed to share much more information about himself with Kaidar, finally leading to what would be called true friendship. To think, in the hands of a couple galaxy brains, something that would take years had been all but completed in a couple days. Before they could get closer, though, there was an explosion right in front of them, stopping Kaidar right where it was in absolute shock. "What was that?" shouted Elias. As Kaidar seemed to compose himself, Elias knew something important was gonna happen. Elias knew that Kaidar could barely feel anything in the water. That meant whatever they set up had to be a lot larger than what the eye can see. "The water is not safe anymore," Kaidar had stated simply. "We must get out as soon as possible." What do you mean?" asked Elias. The situation had suddenly taken a turn for the worse. What if there would not even be time to escape? "I cannot tell you, but all I know is that we are now marked. They mean to kill us now," said Kaidar. "You must do everything in your power to make our escape." If he could trust that gut feeling in his stomach, then that meant there was no time. Whatever they had been planning to do had finally started, and it seemed they did not even want for Elias to live for any amount of time. This would be their escape point. This is it, moral. Emergency escape sequence. Set the coordinates for the surface and let's get a wriggle on. Elias barked into his calm, the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Elias! What are you doing? You can't be serious." Anya's voice came back, laced with panic. "Dead serious. If we want to make it out of here alive, then we have to go now. Besides, you owe me one, don't you?" Elias yelled, "Hurry!" Before any answer could be heard, he could just barely feel vibrations going on as Kaidar was doing what it could to swim as fast as possible. What Thorne did not realize was the vibrations of Kaidar that had helped them navigate before was now being used for ill purposes, as the facility had responded in kind, trying to find and hunt them down on the spot. The escape pods, usually used to navigate the sea threads, but instead used as a weapon. "Okay, buddy, time to dance," said Elias.